Gentlemen, Tez Gabriel.
I am absolutely honored and delighted to be here this morning. Thank you for having us. Oh, I see friends coming in. Come on in. So, as you know, my name is Tez Gabriel, and you can call me Tez because Tezekiah is a mouthful. You did a great job, Neil. We talked about the phonics before church. And so with me today is Rich Miller. And Rich is, well, you've already heard some of what he has to offer. Wow, right? Wow. Wow. And it's only the beginning. Rich is bringing his music into every aspect of our service this morning. And Rich is a recording and performing artist. He performs in various venues around the state. And most Sunday mornings you can find Rich in sacred sanctuaries like this one, bringing his music. I was so delighted he was available this morning. He's a spiritual brother, a friend, and a joyful collaborator. So thank you, Rich, for being here and gracing us with your gift. After the service today, Rich is going to be at a table out in the foyer, and he has some amazing CDs that he can offer that you might be interested in. I hope you'll be interested in, and I'm going to be hanging out there with him as well. So we hope that you stop by, that you chat, and spend a little time before you go about the rest of your day. So the theme for December is continuing the light. And my take on that, and the title of my talk today, is It's an Inside Job. Because even in a room full of light workers, which you all are, all of us can experience some darkness. All of us can feel a disconnect from that ever-present light within. So we know that light, when we talk about light, is interchangeable in all of our spiritual texts and sources for the divine. However we relate to the divine source, whatever name we choose, be it higher power, great spirit, the universe, higher self, we know and honor all of those names and know them as well to be one. So let's open to our divine within and invite Spirit into our gathering with an opening prayer. As we settle into this sacred space, in this sacred time, O great divine, creator of all that is, all that ever was, and all that will ever be, we recognize and honor your presence within and among us. Open our hearts and minds to an awareness and experience of your divine and ever-present light, love, and enduring peace. Give us the intuition to hear and know our own truth. And as we walk into what appears to be the dark, help us to understand that it is really a new kind of perfect light, one we have not seen or experienced before. Help us to remember that we are one with you and all this glorious creation. We are blessed beyond imagination. And so it is. Aho and amen. And now I'd like to have Rich once again fill us with light and fill us with his beautiful spirit. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Tez. So this song is titled, You Are a Star of God. But if a star of the divine, a star of the universe works for you, let it be so. Because within each of us, what this song is all about is that spark of divinity that resides within each of us. You are a star of God. You have a spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. You are a star of God. It is your spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. Now often we get caught in the vision of the life that we've chosen to live. We too often hold on to the sorrow and forget that we need to forgive. Then we wonder why everything happens, while denying that we played our part. So the lessons repeat till they're finally complete, and we hear this deep in our heart. You are a star of God. Sing along if you like. You have a spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. You are a star of God. It is your spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. Now how many times have you wondered, probably over and over again, if there's really a reason for living? Tell me, when will the mystery end? And then when you are ready, it happens, like the light from a brilliant blue star. And the sound that begins to resound from within will remind you who you really are. Who are you? You are a star of God. You got it. You have a spiritual destiny. That's right. To share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. You are a star of God. It is your spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. Every moment can teach us, all of life teaches us too. We only need to learn love is the key, and put love into all that we do. You are a star of God. You have a spiritual destiny. Sounds good. Share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. One more time. You are a star of God. It is your spiritual destiny to share the love of God with all of life, and know His soul you are free. Thank you.
Whew. All right. Thank you, Rich. Oh, my. So do you feel it? Do you feel that star within, that inner light that fills your being, that you can push out into this room and beyond? You have a star within and a destiny. Thank you. So when Gandhi was studying law at the University College of London, there was a professor whose last name was Peters, who felt animosity for Gandhi, and because Gandhi never lowered his head towards him, their arguments were very common. Can you imagine having a student, having Gandhi as your student? One day, Mr. Peters was having lunch at the dining room of the university, and Gandhi came along with his tray and sat next to the professor. The professor, in his arrogance, said, "Mr. Gandhi, you do not understand. A pig and a bird do not sit together to eat." To which Gandhi replied, "Do not worry, Professor, I'll fly away." And he went and sat at another table. Mr. Peters, green with rage, decided to take revenge on the next test. But Gandhi responded brilliantly to all those test questions. Then Mr. Peters asked him the following question. "Mr. Gandhi, if you are walking down the street and find a package, and within it there's a bag of wisdom and another bag with a lot of money, which will you take?" Without hesitating, Gandhi responded, "The one with the money, of course." Mr. Peters, smiling, said, "I, in your place, would have taken the wisdom, don't you think?" "Each one takes what one doesn't have," replied Gandhi indifferently. Now Mr. Peters, already hysterical, writes on the exam sheet the word "idiot" and gives it back to Gandhi. Gandhi takes the exam sheet and sits down. A few minutes later, Gandhi goes to the professor and says, "Mr. Peters, you signed the sheet, but you did not give me the grade." Whenever we begin to feel disconnected from that ever-present inner light, laughter is a great tool. So we are currently in solstice energy. And of course, we know a lot about solstice. And in 11 days, many of us might be joining the energies of people from around the world in that universal event of solstice. The meaning of solstice in Latin is sun stands still. And our ancient ancestors truly believed that as those days grew longer and grew colder, that the sun would stand still in the darkness. So what they did was they gathered on the hills and in the valleys. They gathered together and they created great fires. They sang and they danced all night. And they cried out to their gods to bring back the light. You can imagine how frightening it was to not have the assurance that the sun would rise in the morning. And without that sun, those folks would perish in the dark and in the cold. There'd be no crops to feed the people. Most religious holy days we celebrate are related at this time of the year, will take us back to solstice and the return of the sun. We sing, we tell stories of light, we light candles, We may even decorate our home with lights, all symbols that bring us back to the meaning of this universal event, this ancient time beyond our knowing and yet embedded in our DNA. All of these things to remind us that the light, the sun, has returned. However, even as we celebrate these holidays of peace on earth, goodwill toward all of us, that we celebrate the joy, the love that surrounds us in this time of growing darkness and reduced light. Some of us might be suffering. And just like our ancient ancestors might be calling out, bring back the light. We've all experienced dark times in our lives when it was difficult to touch and feel our light within. Even though we might yearn for it, and even if we know it's there, but we just can't touch it, and we just can't feel it. We're all spiritual beings living a human existence, right? We know that. And that human existence can present both opportunities and challenges. Those opportunities and challenges can bring us closer to our own divine inner light, or they can feel like we're in darkness. When we live with an open heart, we experience a whole spectrum of emotions. And the more open our heart, the greater the range of emotions. From exuberant joy to the deepest and darkest sorrow. We can also experience both of those and so many more in a single moment. This range of emotion is both a gift and the challenge of being human, and is key to our spiritual evolution. As in times of great gladness and times of deep sorrow, we can feel the closest to the divine and our divine within. It's in times of darkness that we can remind ourselves of that divine bright star within us, always present and always burning bright, even when we can't feel or touch it. That's faith, right? Is that remembering? And we also know we have so many others, both within our own community and beyond, that have experienced tragedy and have experienced great challenges and can say, that was good for me. That was the best thing that happened to me. That cancer survivor that says, I am so glad I had cancer. So we know that even in the midst of our dark times, our open hearts can know and experience inner peace and joy and great love. We can still feel the connection to our own inner light. So there's no right or wrong emotions or responses to what occurs in our lives. And as spiritual people, I think one of our greatest challenges is to not feel like we're responding in a way that isn't quote-unquote spiritual. Right? Our emotions are what they are, and there are gifts embedded in them if we choose to explore them versus deny them. I'm reminded of the Buddha who was sitting at the grave. And there was a passerby, and the passerby saw the Buddha weeping. And he said, "Why are you weeping, you master of detachment, master of inner peace, master of spirit?" And the Buddha replied, "I've lost my friend. My friend has died, and I am sad." We all experience dark times. We all experience emotions that can either, again, draw us closer into our own divinity, in that closer to that great divine, or can leave us feeling powerless. So, we know this. So what are some of the ways that we can help ourselves continue that light? Feel connected to that light that we know is there, in dark times as well as in all times? Well, I think that the answer to that question lies within the hearts of each of us here. And I thought this morning I would share with you some of the ways in which I've managed and grown through my own dark times. And the first thing that comes to mind is that these times provide an opportunity for us to touch back to what we know as spiritual people. Those key principles that guide and direct our life, but can feel a little distant when we are experiencing some of the darkness. So I'm going to go through 4 of those spiritual principles that have meaning to me, and that I remind myself of when I can't quite grasp that light, that star within me. So the first one is that we are divine, right? We are divine. Eckhart Tolle said, "We are all God in disguise." Should we breathe into that one? Whew, right? We are all God in disguise. Everything we know as spiritual people today, and what our sacred texts and sources tell us, affirms that we are one. One with each other, one with the universe, and one with spirit. We are divine. We are God. And so, if we are God, then how can we create a different way of being? Can we? Of course we can. We not only have an ever-radiant light within us, we are that light. We are that light. Just like you can't be a little bit oneness. You can't be a little bit light. We are that light. The path to enlightenment, from my belief, my understanding, is an evolving awareness of our union with divine source, and living out of that awareness and experiencing life through that awareness. I love this quote from Carrie Chapman. "Entering into communion with the entire universe, our horizons are extended to the very limits of reality. To a completely realized oneness, a boundless expansion. The image should not be the drop of water which merges into the ocean and is lost, but the ocean which enters the drop. My second principle that I remind myself of is divine design. As one with all that is, we were created to create. And we create through our thoughts. Now, that can be somewhat challenging, but what it involves is bringing greater intention into our thoughts, because we know we're creating through our thoughts all the time, but are we creating our desired result? Sacramento, California's study recently said that the average human being has 48.6 thoughts every minute. That's kind of a lot of thoughts to track, don't you think? And so we can try to kind of gain a little more intentionality with the thoughts we have, or we can be intentional in creating the thoughts that will help us create our desired reality. Research has found that 50% of the contribution to happiness is genetic. 50%. 10% circumstances, that's stuff outside of us, and 40% our choice, our attitude. We create through choice. As God's, our power of creation is unlimited. We can create our heaven on earth if we but choose. Divine perfection is the third principle. As one with divine source, we are divine perfection. As a friend recently said, you're perfect and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't make a mistake. You are on the right path at the right time, and it's perfectly divine. There is nothing that you can do to not be on the path home, with home being defined as that union with that divine source. So there are some things we can do perhaps to accelerate our path home, or not, but just like the sun, our path home is inevitable. We're all going to be there. We're all on that path. The last and fourth principle I'm going to share is unconditional love. And we think a lot about and talk about unconditional love so much that it can become trite, and yet it is so not trite, right? To be able to receive unconditional love and to give it is just the most profound experience we could ever have. Am I right? Have you felt it? Yes, it is divine. So the Dalai Lama says, if you don't love yourself, you cannot love others. You will not be able to love others. If you have no compassion for yourself, then you are not able of developing compassion for others. That's pretty straightforward, right? Not that you may not. It really is. You will not be able to express love to others. You will not be able to be compassionate with others if you don't love yourself, if you don't experience self-compassion. So, if it hasn't happened yet, I encourage you to fall deeply in love with yourself. This day, in this moment, fall deeply in love with yourself. Loving ourselves unconditionally means letting go of self-judgment. Is that an easy thing to do? It means forgiving ourselves as well as those we perceive have harmed us. And it means practicing self-compassion. There's some great research and some great work that's currently being done by Kristen Neff and Brene Brown on self-compassion. And it's well worth looking at. They believe that self-compassion is really more important than self-esteem, and probably underlies true self-esteem. The 3 components of self-compassion that they include in their work is 1, self-kindness, being kind, gentle, and understanding with yourself when you're suffering. They say to treat yourself like a good friend. Common humanity is the 2nd. Realizing you're not alone in your struggles and that everyone experiences loss, makes mistakes, feels rejected, or fails. It's our shared common human experience. And lastly, mindfulness. Observing life as it is without being judgmental or suppressing our thoughts and feelings. This work is sacred, right? Yes. So we've talked about 4 spiritual principles that we can remind ourselves of that may help us feel reconnected to our inner light. And it's kind of like it's easy to say them, but how do we activate them, right? And I decided, and Rich, I was thinking of you when I put this together, that I would put some of those practices under the heading of the 4 R's, okay? And those 4 R's, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, no. We're doing 4 R's around spiritual practice to keep ourselves in the light. So let me tell you what they are. Rest, reclaim, or I'm sorry, there's 5. Rest, reclaim, reframe, release, and rejuvenate. So the first one, rest. Rest in God. All is well. You need do nothing. Settle into that divine light and simply rest. 2, reclaim. Reclaim your own power, your own divinity, your own light. And an exercise or a practice I do with this that, if it's useful for you, I think is very powerful. I've found it to be powerful. Is what I call the I am principle in practice. We know that the name of God is I am. Whenever asked, the response was I am, or I am that I am, right? And so whenever we use the words I am, we're drawing down all that creative energy in the universe, and that has an effect. It creates. So the first thing we need to do is to kind of use a little caution about how we use that I am, right? And then secondly, we can be intentional with how we use that I am. So in my mind's eye, I imagine myself standing firm and strong. And I'd like a cookie too. You know, it's getting to be that time of the day. Oh, it's so great to hear little voices. It's just so great to hear little voices. And so, I'm standing in my mind's eye, full of my own power and glory, erect, filled with light. And now I imagine a staff in my dominant hand. And then I choose the word that I need to be able to overcome whatever it is I'm struggling with. And as I state my I am, I'm going to slam that staff to the ground. I am triumphant. I am victorious. I am light. Whatever it is you need to use. It's like commanding the universe. It is our birthright, and we are hardwired as co-creators with the divine to create our own reality. You will be shocked at how quickly things shift when you do that. And I never knew why Spirit gave me the staff in that exercise. And a friend of mine who's very, very spiritually aware said, well, it's the staff of Moses. You could part the Red Sea. Okay. So however you perceive that staff from various kind of traditions, it is a power tool, just as you are. 3, reframe. How many of you use reframe in your work or in your life? Yeah, we kind of know a lot about reframing, right? This is simply about taking something that's challenging and reframing it into a positive. So instead of kind of feeling like we're a victim, we're creating a reframe that can help us feel powerful, good, peaceful, happy. So when faced with a challenging situation, create a positive reframe. Create a story that empowers you. Now, you know, we all have these things that occur. Maybe we're sitting in traffic and all of a sudden a car whips around us and cuts in front of us, right? Does that ever happen to you? I can't imagine that ever happens to anyone but me. But anyway, and so what happens when something like that happens? And it can be big or small. We immediately begin to create a story about what that meant, right? Right? We've created a story about who that person is and why they're acting like that and blah, blah, blah. And you can tell by the finger it's not good. Okay? And it leaves us feeling victimized instead of powerful. So what I found in my own life, that I've had to train myself around the pause, that interruption of the creation of that story. And you know, the beauty about the pause in any kind of spiritual practice is in that pause, all of creation opens up, right? And we can make choices about how we're going to deal with that. We cannot change what happens on the outside world, in our external environment, but we can change how we interpret it and how we respond to it. And that's the power of choice and the power of creation. Release. When we're struggling, guess what? That should be a cue to us that we think we're in control, instead of the fact that Spirit's in control, right? It should be a prompt that we have a tool at our disposal. We can release whatever we're struggling with to the universe, to divine source, for it to be healed and transformed. I have this image in my own mind of this universal, beautiful flow. And it just is beautiful. And when I'm struggling with something, that means that I think I'm in control. And that flow represents spirit being in control. And everything about divine timing and right work and everything exists in that flow. So I imagine myself just stepping up into that universal flow, just resting in that universal flow, releasing everything that causes struggle. So whatever way works for you to release, there are so many different ways. Marianne Williamson says, put it on the altar to be altered. And I use that as well. In my own mind's eye, I've created this beautiful altar, and I can throw stuff on there, and it's all going to be healed and transformed without any effort of mine. Yeah. Throw it on the altar to be altered. So perhaps you have a safe and happy place you retreat to. Many of us have. We do creative imagery, and we have our happy, safe space we can go to. That can help us be in a place to truly release. So whatever works for you, perhaps you decide to put that struggle, that problem, that situation into a box, beautifully wrap it, and put it under a tree or on the shelf. 'Tis the season to release. Rejuvenate. There are so many. That's the fifth. Rejuvenate. There are so many ways, so much access that we have today to use spiritual practice to rejuvenate and to keep us feeling connected to our light within. Countless ways, far too many to talk about here. We know that regular daily practice helps us. Again, whatever resonates with you in that practice. The Eastern tradition says that there are 3 ways to be in connection with the divine: prayer, meditation, and conversation. I prefer conversation throughout the day, but prayer is when we're talking to God, and meditation is when God's talking to us. And so all of those ways to stay in communion can help us keep that inner flame burning brightly. Breath is a powerful tool. Whenever we breathe in all of creation, and we breathe out our own light, love, peace, and joy. So many meditation practices or rejuvenating practices begin with breath, sometimes just a few moments of slower and deeper breathing can bring us back into a sense of connection. It is said that breath is prayer. And I believe that every warm thought that I have is a blessing that goes out to that individual and comes back to me as well. Gandhi, again, said that it is better in prayer to have a heart without words than words without a heart. So just being present, loving ourselves, loving others is prayer. I find it good and useful to begin each day with a simple intention before my feet hit the floor and the world occurs. And I end each day with some reflection and some gratitude. What have I learned and what I'm thankful for? Of course, being in service and living in gratitude are always great ways to regenerate. And singing, dancing, communing, and celebrating, those are in our DNA as ways to connect and feel that connection. Remember, our bodies are hardwired to be in co-creation. We have the tools we need within us. to shift our consciousness and create a different reality, one that empowers our divine within and heals and transforms our world. This is our birthright. This is our birthright. Thank you. So, it's time, little pastime. Rich, I think go ahead and do your whole piece for us, and we're going to move into meditation. And so this meditation is going to be about increasing in the moment our awareness of our own light, the power of our own light. And Rich is going to lead us into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tez.
And by the way, while Rich is singing and you're taking in that amazing music, I want you to just close your eyes, settle into your chairs, take some deeper, slower breaths, allow the chair to support you, and just rest.
Trust the inner feelings that you have. Listen for the whisper. And follow the inner guidance you receive. Listen for the whisper. For your dreams to come true, wish them with all your heart. And if they're meant to be, know that they soon will start if you just let them flow. And trust the inner feelings that you have. Listen for the whisper. Follow the inner guidance you receive. Listen for the whisper. And when you seek love, you've only to look within, for it is always there, as it has always been, if you just let it flow. And trust your inner feelings that you have. Listen for the whisper. Follow the inner guidance you receive. Listen for the whisper. Trust your inner feelings. Follow your inner guidance. And listen
want you to follow your breath. In and out, breathing more deeply and slowly. And feel yourself opening. Opening up every pore in your body. Opening. And now I want you to see your heart expanding. See it filling with light. Look at the beautiful colors of your unique, precious, and powerful light. And now see your heart expanding and the light within it expanding. That light expanding beyond any barriers in your body and filling you up totally, beautifully with divine light. You see yourself as strong, as powerful. You see yourself as light, radiant light, beautiful, radiant light. And now you see that light moving beyond the barrier of your body as it goes out to everyone in this room. Flows out over the community. And see it flowing out all over the world as you send your beautiful divine light out to nurture, to love, to heal, and transform everything it touches. Everything it touches. See it, feel it, know it. Experience it. It's filling everything with love, with peace, with joy. That powerful light you've sent out from that great power source that is you. And now when you're ready, you can come back to this physical space and time. And you're going to bring that beautiful light with you. Filled with the light, you're going to wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Come back into this sacred place with those other beings of light. We are the creators. We bring our light to heal and transform ourselves, each other, and our whole universe. As the Hopi Nation elders said, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Thank you. We are going to be having a sing-along. Yay? Yay! That's right. And Rich is going to teach us and lead us. So, Rich, are you ready?
Ready.
All right.
So this has a verse that keeps repeating. We just alter the key word in it. So here's how the verse goes. In the first, second, and fourth lines are all the same. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Here's the third line. I feel this light inside me, and I've got God's love to guide me. So I'm standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Try that. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. I feel this light inside me, and I've got God's love to guide me. So I'm standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Peace. Standing in the middle of peace, and I shall not be moved. Standing in the middle of peace, and I shall not be moved. I feel this peace inside me, and I've got God's love to guide me. So I'm standing in the middle of peace, and I shall not be moved. Joy. Standing in the middle of joy, and I shall not be moved. Standing in the middle of joy, and I shall not be moved. I feel this joy inside me, and I've got God's love to guide me. So I'm standing in the middle of joy, and I shall not be moved. Light, one more time. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. Standing in the middle of light, and I shall not be moved. I feel this light inside me, and I've got